All right, good morning, y'all. We are going to continue with the lesson that we've been working on. So, for the past week, we were working on creating a pinwheel, and we did a couple things. So, we introduced this idea of functions and being able to create blocks or make a block that actually encompasses a function, right? So, inside of that function, we have a bunch of code that we call algorithms, right? So we have this algorithm inside of our function in which once we click on this function, the code runs, right? So we don't have to look at all this 10, 12, 14 lines of code anymore. We just call this function, and this function runs all that information. So it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot easier to follow. So we're going to be looking at today. We're going to go ahead and start off. So we had our pinwheel, and we're going to go back to our pinwheel activity. So you should open up you're going to end up opening up your pinwheel activity for today, and you're going to create a new one. So you'll go to open, and you'll have your uh, original pinwheel activity here. You'll just reopen that, and you'll just end up saving as again, and you'll just rename it. So you'll rename it modified pinwheel. So rename it modified pinwheel. Again, it's in your um, activity guide. So when you do your activity guide, you can do this process. So just so you know, you're going to be doing this. All right. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and recreate our pinwheel. So I already have my block right here that's created. I'm going to go ahead and edit the block, and we're going to change a couple things. So first off, we had sides. We're going to actually rename this. We're going to name this number of branches. And I want you to notice how I type this number with lowercase, and then every other word, the first letter is uppercase. This is how we create variables, or we write variables in code. So typically we don't have spaces. We put the words together, and each new word is capitalized. The first letter is capitalized. So we're going to start doing that. We're going to start using that process. So number of branches, press the wrong button. Let's edit this. All right. So we'll go number of branches. Okay. That creates that. I'm going to put the title right here. We're just going to call that branches. All right. So we know what that means. Then we're going to go ahead and put our code in here. So we have a couple move blocks. We have a couple wait blocks. And the wait blocks are just here just so that we can see the process of the program drawing. Right? So that's the only thing they serve. They serve a process of just slowing down the code so we can actually see um, the sprite drawing out our function or drawing out the program. We want to get our repeat button here. That goes inside of here. Okay, and then we have our turn button. We're going to put that here, and we're going to put this operator, right? And operators, we have different type of operators. So we want to use a math operator. This math operator right here allows us to take whatever number we have and divide it by whatever. And so we can plug this in. We want to put 360. 360 being 360 degrees in a circle. Each shape, for the most part, if you try to create any shape, you're going to have a 360-degree circle or 360 degrees that you can use to create a shape per se. So we're going to take that 360 degrees and we're going to divide it, and we're going to use our number of branches right here. We want to implement these back in to our code, and so now we have our function right here, pinwheel. and then we have our algorithm. So this is our algorithm inside of here. The repeat, number of branches, we want to move. I think we had it moving at 100. Then the second move was negative 37. Um, and then again, turn, we have a 360 degrees and we want that divided by the number of branches, right? So that gives us the amount of angle, or the angle that we're going to use to draw each shape. Again, it's 360 degrees. So that means if it goes 360 degrees, it goes back to the starting point. So it goes all the way back to the starting point, which is important. And we'll go here, press OK. And now I have my function right here. I'm going to actually open this up, and I'm going to duplicate this code. I'm going to put it out here so we can see it as well. So you can see what this code looks like. And you can see our function, right? This is a lot easier to read right here. This top part. This is a lot easier to read than this portion right here. All right, and so let's go ahead and add our pin down. Let's add a clear. Let's add a pin down. And I'm going to add this position block just because I wanted to go back to the center every time that we recreate an image. And there's going to be a reason for that. So, all right. And so we know that anything we type here, this gets passed through the program. And so it's good for us to kind of look at some language. This spot right here is called an input. So this right here is an input. We already know what an input is. We've created inputs, right? And we created these local variables, number of branches. This is a local variable. And what we did is we passed this local variable throughout our algorithm, right? So all this is our algorithm. So we want to add, we want to kind of change this a little bit. So we want to call this spot right here, we want to call it a parameter. All right, so I'm going to add a comment. And this input is called a parameter. Right? So functions, we want to create functions with parameters. Parameters is just, again, like this local variable that's passed through. And what it does is parameters allows us to pass through an argument. Now, what is an argument? Argument is just a value, right? So it's a value that we want to pass through the code, right? And this is, again, this is just all computer science language, right? An argument. Argument is nothing more than just information. An argument is the value or information passed through the algorithm, right? That argument is passed through the input, which is our parameter. Our parameter allows us to give specific inputs into our function. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pass some information through here. We're going to pass, let's pass 10, right? So if I pass 10 and I click on this, I get this drawn. Let's pass 5. So I pass 5, right? And I get a pentagon. If I pass 4, I get a square, right? Pass 3, I get a triangle. Good, right? So we passed all these arguments through the parameters of our function. So we passed through some arguments through the parameters of our function. What we're going to look at is now, we want to look at other parts of the function. So we created, like I said, we create this one parameter. There's other parameters that we can create within this function. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So that's why I pulled this part out. This is our actual algorithm inside. And like I said, we want to learn how to create what we call generic functions. What are generic functions? Generic functions are functions that allow us to pass as much information as possible without having to go back inside of the program, right? We don't want to have to go back inside of our function. We want to be able to control our function by creating enough parameters so that we can uh, make the function just do what we want it to do without having to go back in and change anything. So what I want to look at is this move -37, right? This move -37 does something, right? So got this here, and let's play with this a little bit. So let's change this value real quick. I'm going inside of here, and if I change the value of this, matter of fact, instead of going in there, I'm just going to put this right here, so we can just draw it right here. All right. Oh. So as you can see, when I press that, it said a variable of name number of branches. I'm sorry, I'll click it again. A variable of name number of branches does not exist in this context. The reason why is because the only time that variable exists is within that function. So because I pulled it out of the function, it does not work, right? So that's what a local function is. We talked about that. Sorry, local variable. We talked about that. So I just want to kind of show you guys why it's not working. The variable, since the variable is not being called inside of this function, pinwheel branches, it does not understand what that variable is. So we have to make sure that we call it within the function. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this out real quick, but we know what we know what it is, all right? And I'm going to go ahead and just manually put this information in. So I'm going to put 5 and 5 here, and I'm still going to mess with this move, this one right here, for a reason. So right now it's 37. So if I draw my function, now, what if I make it -75? Let's see what happens. What if I make it -50? What if I make it 0? Oh, let's make it 25. Oh, okay. What if I make it -250? All right, so this move is doing something, right? But let's change it again. So as we can see, we can change this move. What this move is doing, it looks like it is changing the position of the sprite when it starts drawing the next line or the next side, right? So maybe I want to be able to do that. Maybe I want to be able to consistently change that information. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create another input. All right, so I'm going to create another input for that block. So I'm going to create another input right here. I'm going to name that. I'm going to name that backup. All right, so I'm going to name it backup, and of course, name it backup right here. I think I made 2 inputs when I only want to make one, so I'm going to change one real quick. I'm going to make that a title text. Cool. All right, and then I'm going to take that. I want to put that here because, like I said, I want to be able to just kind of like change where I draw, which kind of helps me change the size of of the shape inside or within the lines, right? So if I do that, now I have this backup. I'm going to go ahead and if I put this at 50, I'm gonna change this to -10. Oh, that's gonna be crazy. Hold on, let's not do that one. Let's see. Let's do 10. Let's do a backup of negative 25, 24. I forgot to reattach this information here, so I'm gonna reattach this back. Yeah, let's go. Okay. Move this around a little bit. Okay, clear. Now go. Okay, and let's do negative 35. Let's do negative 37 again. Let's go back to our original, which was negative 37. Um, all right, so we were able to go ahead and generalize this code a little bit more. So now you see we had this right here, this right here. I'm gonna go ahead and open this. I'm gonna copy this real quick, duplicate, and now we have this right here. All right, so we've almost generalized the entire function, right? We almost generalized the entire function. So we need to go ahead and finish generalizing this function. So that's what you'll be focused on today, is continuing this process. I've started you off with the first one, so now you have one left. And then once you do that, you're going to go ahead and try to create a couple shapes, and then finally you have the challenge. Make sure that you complete the challenge, because that is the only way that you can get an A on the activity. You have to do the challenge. It requires, or it helps you to utilize the techniques and everything that you learn for this activity, and try to do something that challenges your thought process or your critical thinking. So please do the challenge. Whether you get it right or wrong, I do not care. I just want to see how much you can apply what you learned, and see if you can manipulate that information and create something else. All right. That is it for today. I'll see you tomorrow.